We'll start today's session with question answering systems uh, for the social network analysis. Now, question answering system as such, when you post in question or when you post in query, it tries to pull out the information. Now, the information can be two types. It can be based on mm, just pulling out based on the keywords what we give in the query, or you really try to understand the question and pull out the relevant documents. So their question answering systems helps you to provide direct answers to the questions, either based on the structured data or the unstructured data which is available. And the two types mainly are, or the QA systems can be classified into information retrieval based system and the knowledge based system. Now, just for our information, to acquire information, you do it. So, one is just in fact checking, one is complex reasoning. One sec. And the other one is complex reasoning. You try to handle multiple queries and then you go ahead saying what has to be done. Fine. So these are the two type of systems mainly we work on in your way of presenting. And now the next one is info. We'll dig deep into the information retrieval system where we have a question which is given as input both to the retriever as well as to the part where you try to pull in and make it as an user friendly message. Now you have a set of docs, and from wherein you retrieve all the queries information, and the query and the retrieved subset of information is alone given to the reader part, from where you get the correct answer out of it. So it's an retrieve, that is what they call it as a retrieve read model. So when a question is given, it is converted into an query format, and then type of answer what has to be detected. uh, you have a set of documents which are being indexed in some format, and therefore indexing plays a major role when you store the information. Once you move on to a document retrieval, it can be based on the similarity index or based on your machine learning algorithm, so on and so forth. We try to identify a feasible set of documents which are converted into certain chunks and then are provided to the answer processing system. So we have certain examples where you have questions which can be taken from certain knowledge base. Now the next one is knowledge based questions, where you talk about the subject, predicate, and the object, which they normally call it as and triples. So you try to form questions which are in a structured fashion, which are given to different encoders. Now, what happens here is you move based on the score, these classification scores and so on and so forth. So you have here in this example you have the probability of the first part over the second part. You try to understand how it works. You try to work on the Cartesian product of all these informations, and then you move ahead. So that part is what you have as the knowledge base. And then moving on, you have the graph based knowledge representation. So you have a connectivity between one keyword and the other keyword. That is how they try to populate. And this graph based is based on the common interest, or it is based on the relationship between one over the other, and so on and so forth. So most probably when you talk in terms of a relationship, it is either you have talk in terms of an is a relationship or an has a relationship, and that is how it works on. So relation extraction in knowledge based is purely based on the information. I try to talk in terms of the entities what are available in the system, and sorry, in the sentence which is given. For example, here you talk about Paris is the capital of France. What do we do here is we try to understand the main entities, search the content, and then give some relevant information. That is how they normally work on. Now, if it is by semantic parsing, then you have to really identify the entity, identify the context of it, and then you try to understand what it is. Now, for example, if this particular question is given, sorry, if this particular question is given, you talk about a non-stop flight which is required. You want to know which is the source and the destination. If it is next Tuesday, then you are supposed to identify the correct date from the calendar. Okay, and then you can among all these. So I have to first identify the date, the location, and then you talk about hopping a flight with a break, or you don't have a, you talk about non-stop flights, uh, wherein you try to identify or list down a set of flights from different uh, groups, and then you talk about the cheapest fare. So you have to really understand, the system has to really understand all these concepts, only then we'll be able to take it up. Fine, uh, we have certain data sets for knowledge based question answering systems, which they call it as the web questions for fact based, and you also have an symbol question base. Now, any any comprehensions which has to be read, which has to be analyzed, and then you are supposed to find the answers out of it. And there are also pre-trained models which work like BERT and T5. Uh, this is just for our understanding. We will not move into it. Okay. We also have hybrid system which has a combination of information retrieval as well as the knowledge base. So you try to understand the keywords, just pull out the facts out of it. Now, for example, if I have to talk about an US election, you will have lot of queries onto the Google search wherein the facts alone are pulled out. So that's an information retrieval system. But how does he win? What made his victory? So in that case, it becomes a knowledge-based system. And then you have the question answer model, which comes from the Watson side, where you try to analyze certain thing. So here it is purely based on these similarity index, this scoring work. So the metrics in which we have to work on is the exact match, which checks if the predicted answers are correct, or the F1 scores, which helps you to measure the token overlapping between the predicted and the actual answers. Fine. We also have a mean reciprocal rank, uh, which gives you the rank among the correct answers, which is also mandatory. You talk about the challenges are, you talk about an ambiguous sentence. Many a times when we work on ambiguous sentences when we speak. Most of the times when we speak, it's bit ambiguous. It gives you many meanings, and therefore, many a times we have fun in giving a different meaning and pulling others' legs. But that becomes now a real challenge to the system, and then you also have a long sentences. I have seen sentences many times when we write our documents, we write certain information. It goes from line to line by using all congestion of words we know. Uh, at the end, the only person who has something in mind and he has written it will be able to answer it. But the other way around, if I could divide them into two or three sentences or three or four sentences, which is short enough and gives a very crisp and clear meaning, then that document would be more readable than the one where you have a sentence which runs to 4 or 5 lines. So that challenge is also there. Most probably, I tell the students where you have a textbook and you also have a notes prepared by your faculty. Sometimes we try to rely on the notes prepared by the faculty because in a textbook it goes from pages together, which we don't feel that comfortable with, and therefore we work with the faculty notes because they are short. It is easy to understand, so the challenge also comes in that area. Then we have the few real world applications, which talks about the healthcare area, the customer support chatbot, and the virtual assistants we have. So this is just an overall of the question answering system which you normally have. And the same language processing plays a very major role in also your social network analysis, because the comments what we post in earlier days, it is based on the following and the interest, and then came the hashtag, where a lot of input was given on to analyze the hashtag connections. Later on, social media one is the one which affected, which could bring out the emotional position of a particular person, and therefore a lot of sentimental analysis has been we are working on those things. It just pulls in the words and so on and so forth. You try to connect it, you try to connect with the persons whom they are connecting with, so on and so forth. So a lot of work goes on to such kind of searching. And the NLP plays a very major role. We'll stop here with the question answering system. For time being, I'll stop the recording and then we'll start with the next part, that is your CKY algorithm.